Hi, friends. My name is Jack Taroni. I'm the pastor at Faith United Methodist Church here in the Stroudsburg area. And if you're watching this, you're watching Faith Talks. This is something I've really enjoyed doing so far. You didn't see from me for the past couple weeks because there've been a lot going on, and we're kicking off the fall season here at Faith United Methodist Church. And I'm so looking forward to everything. But uh, I'm back here to continue to reflect on faith in some way and continue to answer some important questions about, how we view our faith and just understand it a little better in the space here of social media and online in the digital world. I always want to reach out to more people here. And so if you're watching this, I say, hope you are doing well. God bless you. And I hope that you'll share this around if you enjoy this video following, where we're just going to be diving into some questions. We're going to be hopefully answering some questions about our faith and diving into scripture that way too. It's all going to be so much fun. We can do so much with all this. And our focus today is going to be on mercy. And the reason I'm focusing on mercy today is because, well, first of all, it's such a huge part of our faith, but also there's a lot of acts of mercy going on in our world today, a lot of things going around. And, part of the reason I wanted to do something like this topic was because here in this country, in the United States, in the past couple weeks, we have experienced a lot of violent storms, hurricanes, and then just this past week in Morocco, in Africa, there was a huge earthquake that has taken thousands of lives now, it seems, if we're reading the news reports correctly. And so with all this going on, all this natural disaster, and then, add to that all the terrible acts of, war and violence that are still continuing and persisting on with this world, I thought it was important to take the time to ask, how do we view mercy? How do we view acts of mercy and relief in our world? And how does that specifically apply to our faith? How do we use our faith to create change and make a difference for our community, whether it's right here in our local town or if it's somewhere further out in the world, like Morocco, like on the other, all the way on the other side of the world, where plenty of natural disasters have touched down, on the Pacific coast in Asia and things like that. Natural disasters like that happen everywhere, all around the global community. And so many people end up needing our help. And, you can see reports too about either them not getting it or them struggling to get it. And, how can we be the Church of Jesus Christ that is going out there and seeking to aid and give relief to this kind of thing? What do we, know about giving, and how important is it for us to continue to give to some of those organizations that are doing some important relief work and things like that? So to start with this, we really need to go back to the core of it all, and that is in Scripture. What does Scripture tell us about giving back and being so giving with our faith? Works of mercy are a big thing that are considered very important in Christian ethics, in the ethics of most religions, but most of it goes with the denomination to say that works of mercy are important to serving Christ. It's serving Christ in the world, being the Church of Jesus Christ, because Jesus was so giving to people who were looked down upon and cast down by society of his time. And so much of his work was spent with people who were shunned and just not given any help that they desperately needed, whether they were sick or they had committed acts that were not good beforehand, but he gave them blessing, and then they went on to provide relief to others. I'm thinking of Zacchaeus in that moment. I'm going to get into more of those specifics in a minute, but one thing I specifically wanted to focus on was our beliefs here as a Methodist church, because John Wesley always stressed the importance of giving back, and he equated giving and works of mercy as what we call in the Methodist Church means of grace, which lead to holiness and a sense of well-being, and also sanctification, a sense of salvation and purity. And he says so many different things about those things in his when he starts defining grace. And so what we relate to that today in the church is because we consider God's grace to be such a key focus of our faith. The question then becomes, how are we using it? How are we being the embodiment of grace that we know God is, that we know Jesus Christ meant to represent in his sacrifice on the cross? And how are we going to live on with that? Well, it happens through our giving. And so there's so much, our giving back to the community, rather, not specifically to this church. We always encourage that being stewards of our church and being a community of believers coming together to do well requires that we, have have a good sense of stewardship and being stewards and things like that. But it ultimately comes as part of giving. And John Wesley's theory about this is an interesting thing that one of my seminary professors at Drew Theological School always said. The essence of John Wesley's ideas of giving were give as much as you can so that you can give back. And then before that even, make as much as you can, make as much money as you can so you can give back as much as you can to the church, to anyone in this world. As he always said, the world is my parish. We have a sense, we need to have a sense that the whole world is where we can do ministry. And there's so much to do, so much help that we can provide in giving that. And so, where does he find, as I said before, I'd come back to this, where does he find biblical support for this kind of thing? Well, it is mostly in the works of Jesus. You can relate to so much about the Old Testament in, as people were still finding their ground as far as society goes. But you can look back in, works like Moses leading his people to freedom. We've been talking about that in our worship services in these past couple weeks. What a sense of grace that was to lead them into a new land, that was promised to them, the people of Israel, that is the Israelites, as they are called much of the time in the Bible, God's chosen people. And so, giving back so that they can, live a good society. And then later on, much time has passed in the sense of, the Apostle Paul's work trying to teach Israel about Jesus and build Christianity on a much broader level. He always emphasized the point of going to those who need to be healed and loved. And so when we work our way back and back further and further, there's a couple different places that you can find where Jesus is trying to not only serve and address those in society who were poor or who just needed help directly, but also put in place structures and systems that could help them later on. So remember I mentioned Zacchaeus? Well, that's exactly what Jesus did with Zacchaeus, who, remember, was a regretful tax collector. And he, comes in his, journey with Jesus, he comes to, see how much he took from the people and how much it hurt so many, and said, I'm going to, you've inspired me, Jesus, I'm going to do something else. And, Jesus tells him, you're going to invite me into your house for dinner. We're going to have dinner. And once I leave, this will be a place where people come to be healed, to be helped, to be aided, not in those certain words, but essentially that's what he said. And it built a great system. And that's exactly what Zacchaeus' house became after that. I mean, you go and look at his healing of the man with leprosy. And, I won't get into the whole story, but, those with leprosy at that time, just such terrible diseases were excommunicated from the town. They were just cast upon so much because, in people's unawareness, I guess, let's just say, for, that's a nice way of saying it, but their unawareness that it was just a medical condition. They thought that they were cursed. And so they cast out so many people who were sick with things they just didn't understand at the time. But no, Jesus went in and he healed that man because he needed it. And, people with leprosy, since they were excommunicated, they were left to beg for food and for money. They couldn't get a job anywhere. They couldn't, work or be part of the society because they were cast down so much. And And when Jesus heals all these people, he also sees such great potential for them to do good and pass on that good work and keep it going, in an ever flowing stream or a circle, where you pass things on. It's all part of our work here today. And so I think, how can we respond to that this day and age? I'll tell you something though, for anyone who maybe you're not a part of a church or anything. Maybe you've just kind of glanced around, or not really sure how you feel about faith or anything like that. Not faith, our church specifically. I'm talking about faith in general. If you're not sure about how you feel just about where what you believe or anything like that. I've met so many people in my travels and also in my mission work. I've spent time doing some housing repair projects and things like that here in we're in Eastern Pennsylvania right now, but I'm from Northwest New Jersey, and there's a great program that I've been a part of called the Christian Outreach Project that does such great work doing house repairs for people um, who really need hard labor done on their homes and just can't afford to, or are just immobilized, well, don't have the money, but also just immobilized, and they can't really move. We put in, I think, at least every year, we put in at least 5 ramps into houses because the people who live in these houses have just become paralyzed or handicapped in some way. And can't really handicap, mostly not, no sense of paralysis. Don't freak anybody out, but um, they put up these ramps because people not only can't afford to put them up themselves, but they can't even get into their own houses anymore. And imagine how that must feel. And that's just one basic example. And they do so many other good things. I have had so many meaningful experiences performing those works and meeting some young people who take entire weeks out of their whole summer just to do these projects. And I'm thinking of a few others that we do nearby in this area. The Appalachia is one, Rise is one. That's in New York State, I believe. And then there's a Methodist mission out in Kentucky called Redbird that does significant housing repairs and things like that for some of the poor communities out there in Eastern Kentucky. So many of these things I've done, and people seem so surprised that we're doing this for them. They think, "Wow, thank you so much. I can't believe you're doing all these good works and taking this time to help me." Those are some of the most meaningful and impactful moments for me, and made me really feel good about doing work, but also seeing Jesus working through uh, working through their eyes, and how grateful they are, and serving with one another and building those connections and friendships. And there's so much to be built in those kinds of things. I want us to be thinking about those kind of connections that we can have, because anybody can have those. You don't even necessarily need to be a full-on member of the church or still understand everything about your faith to go and have those experiences with some kind of group, and do some good community service for the world. That all it makes an impact, and you might not think it's because it's small in the long run, but in the long run, those kinds of things compound and build something so much better. And so many a times I've come to think, wow, a really great connection I've made. I got to think something greater could have put us together. Something greater had to say, you're doing the right thing, and keep close to your faith, because your faith is what inspired you to do those kinds of things. Now, those are just my personal experiences. Others might have different ones. I've heard some some really great stories, none that I have time to get into today. But in thinking about these acts of mercy, thinking about how we want to continue to respond to those places in our world that really need our help, whether it's here in the United States, down the eastern seaboard and into Florida from recovering from the hurricanes, or Morocco, or anywhere else. those people are going to need help. And it's those kinds of experiences that we can make with them and provide to them and support them as best that we possibly can. Jesus understood that. And he understood, as being God incarnate, that if he continued to have these acts and proclaim these things, that disciples would follow. And that's just one specific way that the church would continue to build, aside from just faith and Bible study and worship, which are all so, so important. The most important of it all, but service, how we give back, that has a role to play too. So in the spirit of John Wesley, as a Methodist, a Wesleyan, I will say, make as much as you can so you can give back as much as you can. And let's continue to think about how we do that today. I'm thinking about us, and I'm praying for everybody who might need prayers watching this, especially today. I am recording this. I'm not sure if it will get posted today, but if not today, it will get posted some point later this week. But this past week, we've encountered September 11th, a very tragic memorial time for our country, where 20 plus years ago, we had a terrible terrorist attack that killed thousands in this country. And I just wanted to say, too, as a church of God and a church of Jesus Christ, be in prayer and support those who gave not only just their time and effort and their bodies, but also their lives that day to help to save, and those who have since continued to give and support those families and continue to rebuild. Like I said, and we're thinking about these acts of mercy, how God is calling us to act and respond, what examples we can learn from about Jesus's work. Let's all continue to join together, be as loving and as caring and as peaceful as we possibly can, and as joyous all at the same time. It can all happen at once. And I hope that we will keep that in our hearts and minds this day and this week. We'll be back with more Faith Talks at some other time. Until I see you again, friends, continue to share these videos around if you feel so moved to. Continue to like and respond and get in touch with us if there's anything we can do for you or how we can better serve God together in this world. I will see you all soon. Have a great day. Keep the faith.